As we continue our coverage in the race for governor, I'm proud to sit down with former Michigan Attorney General and candidate for governor on the Republican side, Mike Cox. Thanks for being with us today.
Thank you, Simon. It's great to be here.
Yeah. Very excited to talk about your campaign and where you stand on the issues, including jobs, economy, tariffs, all these things. What can you share with us?
Well, let me start first with anyone out there, they can go to my website, Mike Cox 2026. We have about 50 pages of Michigan's problems and how to fix them. But you know, Simon, like you know, living in this area, everyone's concerned really with three things. Number one is jobs. Number two is the state of education. Number three, kids leaving. We're losing population because of the first two things. So I'm really focused on how do we make our economy more dynamic, and how do we educate our kids because they're obviously the future. And they make such a difference. So I have a couple ideas. If you go to my website, I have 5 early primary ideas. Number one, let's eliminate the income tax. The 11 states that have eliminated income taxes are the most successful in the country. And they range from big, like Florida and Texas. They go to small, like New Hampshire and Utah and Idaho. And they're east and west, even Democrat states like Washington. And invariably, all of them are doing better. Second thing, I would reenact right to work. I come from a union family. I was talking with Mr. King, who works for you out there. It was Ford UAW. My brother-in-law is Ford UAW. Right to work, what that is, it allows workers in a workplace to choose whether to join a union or not. Why that matters is job creators from all over the country view Michigan as stuck back in the 70s, and we need to go out and compete. And that's really the focus of my economic program.
Supporting auto manufacturing, where do you stand on tariffs? Obviously, we all want to see jobs remain here in the U.S.
Right. Well, my brother-in-law, Robbie, works the afternoon shift at Dearborn Truck. So it's a big deal. 4 uncles and aunts in the UAW. So it's a big deal to me. The UAW has jumped on board with the president. I know there's uncertainty, but I'm confident the president's going to move the needle. And by that, I mean, he's a deal maker, right? If you read The Art of the Deal, which I reread recently, his famous book from the 90s, he's all about hitting hard on negotiating, and then he's open also to compromise. And that's what we're seeing right now. I feel very confident. Ultimately, we're going to get a better deal for Michigan manufacturers and for the United States.
You mentioned education. What changes would you bring to our education system?
A couple simple things, because the shame of education, my parents are immigrants, legal immigrants. They came here to Michigan specifically because it was the best state to be in the country. I grew up in Redford, a working class neighborhood, but in Redford, you could be safe, have a good job, have a home, and have your kids educated, and believe that every kid in the neighborhood could do better than their parent. So how do we do that now? Well, my grandchildren are in Mississippi. Mm-hmm. And for folks your age, my age, the idea that Mississippi would have passed us by in education is crazy. But Simon, the sad truth, it has. 4th graders in Michigan, unfortunately, read at a lower rate than every state in the nation except for 2. So what do? Well, we have to emphasize the basics. What's that? So you have a child, initially they learn to read, and then they have to read to learn. So what do? We require 3rd graders to be able to read. We give resources to schools and teachers to do that. That's number one. Number 2 is we create more transparency. Let every parent know how their neighborhood school is doing. I could have come here today in an Uber, and I put in my address, some guy or woman I don't know comes up. Before they get there, they know where I'm going, they know who I am, I know who they are. We can't have more transparency in schools. We need to allow parents to see how their local schools are doing so that they can make choices. And that's the third piece, choices. Allow parents to choose what's best for the children. For most, it will be traditional public schools. For others, it will be charter schools or homeschooling. It's really about empowering parents and students.
On the public safety front, do you feel we're succeeding, or where do you feel change should be made?
Well, there's old football saying that you are what your record says you are. And the record, U.S. News and World Report, says we're the 38th, which means 12th from the bottom in public safety. As governor, I'd beef up the Michigan State Police. I provide more resources for the Department of Corrections, for instance, that help in the city of Detroit. When I was Attorney General, we worked in Southwest Detroit. We had a project called the Joshua Project, which had the Department of Corrections going at night checking on folks. Knocked murders down by 29%, non-fatal shootings by 38%. The reality is, while Detroit has gotten better, it is still the third most violent city in America. Think about that. Third most violent city in America. And so as a result, do job creators want to come here? And while we have some young kids moving there, we've had 100,000 middle-class families move to Southfield and Oak Park and Redford. The city of Detroit's lost 10% over the past 10 years of its population. People are voting with their feet that they want public safety, and I would address it as governor.
Okay. You spent 8 years as our Attorney General. Voters are familiar with you in that way. How do you bring unity to Lansing as we see division on both sides?
Well, it's leadership and competence. I started off my career as a prosecutor, a homicide prosecutor for 13 years in Detroit. I was hired by Democrats. I delivered for Democrats, so I got promoted. In fact, I ran all the homicide prosecutions in Wayne County when I was elected. In Wayne County. In fact, my boss was actually Mike Duggan at the time. Yeah. And I ran all the homicide prosecutions, so you deliver. So people want competence, but they also want leadership. For instance, we've had a problem with the roads for the past 7 years. Governor Whitmer said, fix the damn roads. But unfortunately, and I don't want to criticize, but the reality is she puts out a proposal and then she doesn't engage the legislature, or she leaves town. That's not leadership. So you have to hold yourself accountable to be a leader. And when you do that, others will join with you because we all want the same things.
To that point, you feel more money should be allocated to our infrastructure, to fixing our roads? You feel not enough has been done? Is that what you're saying?
Well, two things. Number one, the Speaker of the House, Matt Hall, has proposed a $3 billion improvement with current money. Mm-hmm. So let's do that and see how we do. And then let's adopt the best practices. If you drive around other Midwest states that have the same kind of weather, their roads are better. And so we have to adopt some of their practices to see what they're doing different.
What else can you share about you personally, family and other things like that? Is voters are looking at a wide field in this race, other Republicans and so forth. What do you want people to know about you?
Well, for me, it starts with my parents who are still alive. They came here because this was a jewel. They literally thought the streets of Detroit and Michigan were paved with gold. And for them it was, because it gave their kids an opportunity. Unfortunately, I have 3 of my 4 kids out of state. My daughter's a nurse in Mississippi, in Memphis. Her daughters go to public schools in Mississippi. They're doing better than Michigan. We need to change that around. And I have the ability, as you pointed out, and I get a little excited, so I talk fast sometimes. I was very successful as Attorney General. There I touched every part of state government. I reduced the amount of employees by 20%, and because it was required. So I know how to do more with less. And in my business life, when the voters told me to go home, I went home. I created a very successful business. In fact, I think the last time you and I talked was when I was part of the leadership of representing 1,000 sexual assault victims who sued U of M, and we ended up with a $500 million settlement on behalf of those men and women. So I know how to get things done in the public sector and in the private sector.
Yeah, so appreciate the conversation. Thank you for coming in and talking with us, and wish you the best. Candidate for governor Mike Cox, former Attorney General. Thanks for taking time to visit us here at Broadcast.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.